Good morning, and thank you so much for taking the time to meet today. I'm Mrs. Carter. I'm Susie's special education teacher, and the purpose of today's meeting is to explain Susie's assessment results, what they mean, and how we can best support her learning moving forward from here. I want to emphasize that my goal today is to explain everything in clear, easy to understand language and to make sure that everyone feels comfortable asking questions at any point. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to stop me. Several different assessments were used to better understand how Susie learns. We use multiple types of assessments because there's no one single test that can fully explain a student's strengths and needs. First, Susie completed a cognitive assessment, which looked at how she thinks, reasons, remembers information, and processes what she hears and sees. This assessment showed that Susie has some strengths in verbal understanding and visual reasoning. However, she does have significant difficulty with working memory and processing speed, especially when information was given to her verbally. Next, Susie completed academic achievement assessments. These measured skills in reading, writing, and math. The results showed that she is performing at grade level in math, which is an important strength. However, her scores in reading and written language were well below what's expected of her for her age. Susie also completed an auditory processing assessment, which evaluated how well she understands and remembers spoken information. This assessment showed that Susie has difficulty remembering individual sounds, words, and numbers, which directly affect her ability to read, spell, and decode unfamiliar words. In addition to testing, we also reviewed teacher reports, classroom observations, work samples, and parent input. These real world sources helped us see how Susie functions in her classroom every day and confirmed for us that her struggles are consistent over time. When we looked at all of this information put together, a clear pattern emerged. Susie struggles most in phonics, decoding, spelling, reading fluency, and reading comprehension. It's also important to understand that Susie has received targeted reading interventions over time. These were structured supports designed specifically to help improve her reading skills. However, despite these interventions, her progress has been much slower than expected, and her reading difficulties have remained consistent. Based on state and federal criteria, Susie does meet the requirements for a specific learning disability in reading and written language. This just means that her brain processes sounds and letters differently, making reading and writing much harder for her than for most students her age. It does not mean she's not capable or that she's not trying. In fact, Susie shows strong effort and positive behavior in the classroom. To support Susie's learning, we're recommending several accommodations and modifications in the general education classroom. These would include extra time for reading and writing tasks, reading instructions to her out loud, pairing verbal directions with visuals, and reducing the amount of reading required while still keeping the same learning goals. This means that Susie would still be learning the same skills and content as her classmates, but she may be asked to read less on her own so reading difficulties don't get in the way of her learning. For example, instead of reading several pages of a story independently, Susie might just be required to listen to the text being read aloud or read a shorter section. She would still be expected to understand the main idea, answer questions about what she's read, and participate in discussions just like the other students. Susie would also benefit from explicit structured phonics instruction in a small group or resource room setting where skills can be taught step by step at her pace. Technology would also be a powerful support for Susie. Helpful tools for her would include audiobooks, text to speech programs, speech to text programs for writing, and phonics based reading apps such as Reading EdX or Epix, which she could also access from home. These tools would all help Susie to access grade level content while continuing to build her reading skills. Please be aware that throughout this whole entire process, we did follow all ethical and legal guidelines required under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA. These guidelines include using multiple assessments, gaining parent consent, ensuring tests were fair and appropriate, and involving the parents as full partners in decision making. Our goal is to be honest, respectful, and transparent so families can make informed decisions with confidence. As we close, I want to remind everyone that this is a team process. So, your questions, thoughts, and concerns are very important, and we want to make sure that everything we discussed today makes sense. Please feel free to ask questions at any time, even after today's meeting, if something should happen to come up. We are here to work together to support Susie and to make decisions as a team that will help her to succeed. Thank you so much for your time, your collaboration, and your continued support of Susie.